Hey everybody, Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. So happy to be back doing one of these videos after football returns to Pittsburgh as they get a 31-14 victory out in Philadelphia in preseason game number 1. I know it's just preseason. I know the win is going to be irrelevant in about 4 seconds, but it's good to get a victory. It's good to have football back. So much to talk about, so much to delve into, so I won't waste any time. What I want to talk about today in this video is just my real quick overall thoughts on who did well in this game and who didn't do well. To preface, I haven't rewatched the game yet. I just finished up some articles for the morning, and so I haven't had a chance to go back and watch it. So this is all based off my initial viewing of the game. And certainly, once you go through it a couple times and look at plays, replay them and really put them under the microscope, my thoughts will change. But this is just my initial evaluation. We'll go position by position. So to start, quarterback, Landry Jones is Landry Jones. Nothing even worth talking about there. Made a smart decision, drawing the defense offside to throw that 71-yard touchdown to Juju. That's the only thing of note there, other than getting kind of beat up with 2 sacks early on. The other quarterbacks, though, a lot more to talk about with them. I know Josh Dobbs had the touchdown pass to Damon Patterson. It was a good ball from Dobbs. I mean, it had good velocity. It was generally on time. I didn't love the placement of it. Again, I want to watch it again a couple more times, but I felt like it was a little behind. Patterson had to adjust backwards for it, rather have that one kind of in front of the upfield shoulder. But overall, it got the job done for Dobbs. But I thought he was a little shaky, and I've kind of seen that camp where you've seen the inconsistency, the accuracy not great. Obviously, Dobbs threw the pick that was way too late, trying to throw that crosser from right to left. Just haven't quite seen the jump that you would expect from a year 1 to year 2 guy, and maybe that's my expectations being a little too high, and understanding the quarterbacks will take longer to develop than, say, maybe a running back or a linebacker or someone like that. But even some of the other throws, just ball placement wasn't great. The ball being out a little bit late. I mean, there were a couple good throws underneath against zone coverage, and you're seeing the velocity on the football. You're seeing him make some plays with his legs. So it wasn't all bad, but it just wasn't as crisp as you would hope for a guy last year that had a tough preseason as well. You're just looking for more consistency, I think. As nice as that touchdown was, you don't want every game to be with one good play like the touchdown pass with one bad play like the interception. You want to find, where it can be 2 good plays instead of just one of each. So looking more from Dobbs, but he'll get plenty of reps the rest of the preseason, especially that 4th game, and the 2nd game as well. And you can kind of see where he goes from there, and that's a good preface for all of these players. It's not about just what you do game 1, it's how do you carry that over to game 2, 3, and 4. The guys that did well, can they keep that streak going? The guys that struggled, can they correct their mistakes and get better? So it's about the process, is the totality of it, from where you were to where you finished, and how much did you grow along the way. For other quarterback, of course, Mason Rudolph, I thought it was really solid. Not perfect, of course. Took a couple sacks, the ball, holding on to it a little bit too long, but that's to be expected. And I'm sure some of those plays just nothing was available. But I thought just from an operations standpoint, I thought he was clean, getting guys up to the line, not a lot of false starts, not a ton of miscommunication, none of it that seemed super obvious on Rudolph. There was a couple miscommunications. I think on one play he went to Rudolph wanted James Washington to run a slant. It didn't happen. I think that resulted in a sack, but that's a good sack to take. If there's nothing there, if the play busted, basically, just go down, live to fight another day, take the short loss instead of trying to make a crazy play and making a bad situation worse. I thought his rhythm was good, getting the ball out on time on some of the rhythm throws, whether that's the 10-yard out or the slant or the dig across the middle. Giving guys a chance with the football. Good ball placement downfield. He had one incompletion to, I think it was Patterson down the right sideline. That there was some pretty possible pass interference that wasn't called, but the ball placement was excellent. Outside shoulder, right along the sideline, ball hit the grass right next to the chalk there, and it was incomplete, but it was a great incompletion, and it really probably should have been a penalty on that play. So, just being able to manage the offense. One bad center quarterback exchange, and that's to be expected for a guy that admittedly, Rudolph has admitted he didn't do it at all in high school and in college. But overall, I thought it was just clean. And that's the first step with him. You got to crawl before you can run. So are you doing a good job with the exchange? Are you managing the huddle well? Is the moment not too big for you? And I thought overall it was. He checked all those boxes. Mason Rudolph did. So not a perfect start, obviously, but I thought a good start, better than what most rookies do, better than Dobbs his rookie year last year, better than Landry Jones his rookie year. So, and that's again to be expected because that's kind of you're expecting more out of Rudolph long term than you are Dobbs or Landry Jones. So, but still good to see. The running backs, James Conner was excellent in the short work that he had, running with low pad level, running with explosion, fighting through contact, showing some stuff out of the backfield. The one pass protection was a little iffy, but there were a lot of problems on that play, to be fair. And the offense that couldn't do anything the first two series, Conner was kind of the only guy that got the ball moving a little bit. So short day for him, but good. You wanted to see it. You see that burst and explosion, and it's still a big guy at probably 215, 220 pounds with a full head of steam. That's the guy that's going to do some damage. So good outing from him. Stephen Ridley, I thought was also good, and you would expect a guy like Ridley, who's been in the league now for many years, to be a little faster than everybody else. So you do want to add that context, but I still thought he was decisive, a good check down option, ran tough, got some tough yardage when they needed it. So I thought a good day from him. And again, I think there's an interesting case to be made to keep 4 true running backs and Rosie Nick, so 5 total. I think Samuels has a good shot to make it. Obviously, Connor and Bell are. But could you keep a Ridley? Possibly. Fitzgerald Toussaint was Toussaint, like I guess, similar boat, a veteran guy. He can play faster than everyone else, and of course he's been in the system longer than say Ridley, so he knows everything down pat and is totally comfortable in this offense. So that lets you play a little bit faster as well. But Toussaint's a guy that you can trust in all those situations in the preseason. It's gonna help your quarterback out, and I thought Toussaint did that. The other guys, not much of an evaluation of. Samuels got a little bit of a burn in the first half, split out. I think they threw a screen pass to him. But usually in this first preseason game, you're dedicated to 3 backs just because of time constraints. You only get so many snaps, so many opportunities. So really this game seemed to be about Connor, Ridley, and Toussaint. So hopefully next week you'll see more of Jalen Samuels and less of either Ridley or Toussaint or however they divvy it up. So Samuels got some work late, pretty nondescript across the board. Saw him on special teams as well, running some stuff down. So we'll take a closer look there. Jarvion Franklin, not sure if he even got a carry. I can check the box score if I have it up. I don't think Franklin got a carry in this one. Not sure if he did any work at fullback. I know he'd gotten work there to be the backup after tight end Ryan Malik was waived injured. James Summers did check in late in the game. Had one decent run where he kind of found a crease and wiggled his way forward, but that's a guy that's obviously fighting for reps and having a tough time with it just off of that. Receivers, a lot to talk about there. James Washington, again, making some tough catches. That jump ball that Rudolph threw to him for the 35-yard gain was excellent. Devon Patterson, of course, is highlighting this whole thing. The body control, the ability to take a top off the defense. Running good routes, running the route tree. Saw him catch passes on the out, on the dig, on the vertical little skinny post for a touchdown. Still want to see some more nuance in his route. There was one skinny post he ran where he was split out to the right, and he really didn't give much of a move to the outside, and the corner read it all the way and forced the incompletion. So you're just you got to do a little bit more at this level to get corners to bite than just a little head fake. You got to put your whole body into it, but small stuff that you would expect, and any rookie receiver is going to have to work on. But Patterson was really good, and I was happy to see that because for a good chunk of camp, that's been the report from myself and basically anyone that's been at camp. That he's been really good, but it had faded the past week or so. He just had some bad drops and had some bad days. So it's nice to see him into a stadium and kind of rise to the moment. I think that's what Matthew Marksey wrote in his title, recapping Patterson's big day, was he rising to the occasion. I thought he definitely did that. Rest of the receivers are fairly nondescript. Juju obviously had the big touchdown, so again, all this talk about is the fan going to Juju's head. I said it was overblown, pay no mind to it. That play is going to help show why. He had a bad day of practice, he's a little banged up, but it's nothing to be worried about. And obviously he's catching 71-yard touchdown passes and finding the football and plucking it off a cornerback's noggin, so Juju is totally fine. Justin Hunter pretty quiet, which you you want to see a guy that's a veteran probably do some more, but he really wasn't targeted. So, I don't know if that's a quarterback thing, a play call thing, or a him thing. You'd have to look at it a lot closer. The rest of the receivers, again, not a whole lot going on. Tevin Jones had a drop, which is a little disappointing to see. I'm not sure if the other guys really were even targeted. The Trey Griffeys of the world. I don't think Griffey had a catch. Trying to go through the box score now. Marcus Tucker didn't do much on offense, but as a special teamer, I thought that was important. Had a tackle, I think, on the opening kickoff, down a punt at the 1 yard line. So that's a guy whose path is going to primarily come through special teams and his work out of the slot. So that's a good start for him, even if it's not going to be super impressive on the box score. So I like that from Marcus Tucker, and again, a guy that hadn't had the greatest camp, and then of course got hurt with that right ankle. For him to I think do some positive things, it's good to kind of try to get him back on track, and hopefully he's able to carry that over. The tight ends, like I said, they're a pretty rough group. Obviously, once you get past Vance, who didn't play, Jesse James, who played sparingly at the start of this one, Xavier Grimble, who I'm not even sure what his snap count was, but didn't get anything from him. And again, that's a guy that he's just so hot and cold. He can make some great plays in practice, and he'll disappear for the next 3 days. And it's always been a source of frustration for me, because you see the top talent with a guy like Xavier Grimble, but it's about just trying to find it consistently. So I'm not saying he had a bad game, because honestly I didn't even really see him, but you'd like to see a guy like that make some impact plays in the pass game, and it's always just been so flighty, even in preseason games. I'm looking at the box score, and it doesn't even have a catch in this game. Other receivers, I think Scotland Williamson made his first catch, took a big shot, so he made a nice combative catch. McKeever caught a screen that was kind of a half-busted play. Bucky Hodges, I saw him on the teams unit. I'm sure he was out there on offense, but no impact there. So just guys that are kind of in a similar boat, pretty raw, not good blockers, probably too big for their own size. Just looking like mini tackles out there. Kind of all three of them are kind of in that mold. So hopefully better days ahead. Maybe someone emerges in the fourth game when the nerves are gone and you feel more comfortable out there. But the tight end group, beyond the top three and almost even beyond the top two, is pretty raw and pretty unimpressive, I guess you could say. But hopefully you get some more from Xavier Grimble going forward. The offensive line, obviously BJ Finney getting hurt was kind of one of the scares of the game. Tomlin called it a quad contusion. Hopefully that's all it is. Probably find out some more information throughout the week. Obviously he's replacing Ramon Foster, and if you lose Finney, then you're just going down the depth chart even more. Matt Filer would be the next man up at left guard. I thought Filer had a good game as a run blocker, working in the second level, digging out some of these linebackers. I think Filer's been impressive in camp, and just his whole kind of career arc of being a left tackle at Tiny Bloomsburg, a D2 school, going to Houston and coming to Pittsburgh and trying to learn all these positions and get moved around. And I think just playing tough, playing strong, being an asset in the run game, and you've seen some regular season action from him, and I think he's done well. Whether that's the end of the Lions game last year or the week 17 finale against Cleveland, where I think he allowed a sack, but beyond that, he more than held his own. Rest of the line, a core four looked a little deer in the headlights early. The sack, I think the first one that was probably more on the Castro for getting beat by Fletcher Cox, but a core four just was picking up nobody. So you're just kind of seeing a guy that looked a little unsure of himself, but a guy that's going to get a ton of reps. He played, I think, well into the third quarter, playing both left tackle and right tackle. Started at right tackle because Marcus Gilbert just had a child. Then he kicked to left tackle, and Jake Rogers came into the right tackle spot. So you want to get him working both spots, because that's probably going to be his role when the regular season starts. Don't have a whole lot more in terms of who impressed or didn't impress with the O-line beyond that. A lot of time for Patrick Morris, center, especially after Finney went down. So we got a good chunk of time to get some work there. I'm excited to go back through him. And the others, I couldn't really even tell you who did well and who didn't do well. Kyle Meadows, I think, recovered a fumble, the right tackle, and that's about all I got there. The defensive line, not a whole lot for me to talk about in that regard. Javon Hargrave weirdly played in the third quarter. I don't know why. Who thought it's a good idea to play Javon Hargrave 3 quarters in the first preseason game? I thought McCullough showed some effort, some hustle, which I've seen in camp as well. I've written about and talked about, so hopefully you kind of saw that on display as well. Some more good effort plays from guys like Casey Sales, but again, for the trench guys, it's kind of tough to pick out who made a big impact and who didn't, because those guys get all jumbled up sometimes. You're not quite sure who made this play or who didn't make this play, or the responsibility, or what have you. So I'm a little hesitant to comment on really anything one way or the other with the trench guys. The linebacker group, start with the starters. Again, I think it's interesting that Farrington Huguenin was getting the left outside linebacker nod over Keon Adams. I don't know if that's because of Adams' injury or a seniority kind of thing or just performance based. I mean, it's happened in camp as well. I'm happy Keon Adams played, but I didn't see a lot from him. He did recover the fumble from one Mr. Ola Adeniyi, and I should probably learn how to better pronounce Adeniyi's last name. I think it's Adeniyi. I think is what Dave Ryan and others have kind of have accurately called it. But either way, I said this guy was going to have a good preseason because he's 6'1", he's strong, and you got a 6'7", 6'6" tackles that just can't deal with that. Guys that have that combination of a lack of height and strength, and so he gets early in the second half the strip sack fumble that Adams ended up recovering. So a guy that I think certainly is capable of rushing the passer, that has a good pass rush plan, that has strength and violence in his hands, and he's an effective guy that's not going to waste too much movement. And you saw that on display. So I want to try to go back and see how he covered. I know he was on the kick coverage team and probably the bunt coverage team at some point as well. That's going to be key for him. But a really good start as a pass rusher and carrying over what he did in camp into the preseason, and that's exactly what you want to see from anybody, especially a rookie and an undrafted one at that. For the other starters, John Bostic, Tyler Matakevich. One, I'm glad that Vince Williams played only a little bit, and I'm glad that it was Bostic and Matakevich getting time with the ones and playing a good chunk, because I don't need to see anything from Vince Williams. You know what you have in him. So put Bostic at the buck and Matakevich at the mac, and just let them get reps, even if they're not both at the max spot. Matakevich seemed rough. He had the missed sack on Nate Sudfeld that turned into a touchdown. Bostic missed a tackle early. I thought Bostic kind of recovered and made some impact plays. I think later in that drive or the next drive where he was in the backfield and making some plays there. But you want to see both those guys finish plays and clean things up. And certainly again, that's why number one concern with this team right now is probably that inside linebacker spot, and that's why I've kind of gotten amped up about this $227 look on 3rd and long, where you take both inside linebackers off the field and you get athletes on the field instead. And you get speed and guys that can cover and guys that can match. So, that's kind of why I said what I said, because even though I think Bostic's going to win this and this job ultimately, on 3rd and long, you probably want some different people out there. But I thought a decent day for Bostic. Matakevich struggled. For the fact that Bostic got the starting nod and played better is certainly not going to do well for Matakevich's chances. Other guys, it's hard to say. I saw Matthew Thomas. I think he even played on the edge a little bit, but I don't have much of an evaluation there. For the secondary, I'll wrap this video up. Just aggressive, just guys that are opportunistic, and that was kind of one of the major themes I've seen in camp. But they had 13 interceptions in the first 11 practices. That's more than they had all last year. They're probably going to surpass the total from I think 2015. I think there was 16 in that camp with more like 18 practices to work with. So you're seeing a group that's more aggressive, that's more talented, and just finishing plays. So Cody Sensabaugh, whether that was cover 2 or 2 trap, I'm not entirely sure. But just picks the pass off, number 2 runs an out route. Sensabaugh sits on it and steps in front of the pass. And Cam Sutton takes opportunity of either a bad route or a badly placed football and picks it off a little bit later. So defense created 3 turnovers. That's a great start. In terms of individual play, at corner, Sensabaugh had the missed tackle, which was definitely a source of frustration that eventually led to that touchdown after Matakevich missed the sack. Beyond that, I thought Malik Golden made a nice breakup late in that game, kind of showing his free safety traits. I thought Marcus Allen played physical. Sean Davis did some nice things as an open field tackler. I don't have much of an evaluation beyond that. Burhay was a good tackler, which is not a shock there. Edmonds, I'd have to go back and look at his snap count. We'll chart all that. I think he had one pass thrown his way that could have been caught but ended up being broken up. Edmonton didn't impact the play too terribly much, but just good for him to get a lot of reps out there, and just good for almost his whole group to get some work out there. They held Joe Hayden out, which I was fine with. I told Dave that on the last podcast that I would hold Joe Hayden out. He's old, let him rest up and maybe get him out there for a series next week with the rest of the group, and then definitely for the third game. So overall, good performance. Again, the guys had struggled, looking for them to rebound. Not the end of the world. There's no cut down to 75 anymore, so you don't have to worry about that if you're a guy in that 75 to 90 man roster range. And for the guys that played well, like a Patterson or a Connor or what have you, you got to keep it going. You've raised the bar that much higher. That you played well, you showed you can play well, and now you don't want to take that step backwards. You want to go forward and continue that progress. That's how you make a roster. That's how you make an impression. So those are my thoughts on the Steelers' victory. Good to get the victory. Good to watch some Steelers football. Let me know your thoughts on the game. Who impressed? Who didn't impress? What you agree or disagree with? I'd love to hear it in the comments below. Whether you're listening to this on YouTube, Steelers Depot, or you're hitting me up on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.